The Unseen Scandal of Duchess Liora. Chapter 4. The effect of last night's incident continued to leave Liora shaken, a feeling she's unfortunately familiar with. Her body now bears the painful reminders of the bruises inflicted by her beloved husband, Duke Elendor. Determined this time, she seeks clarity on the meaning behind his hurtful words. Liora has remained steadfastly loyal to her husband, Elendor, with no temptation to stray. She firmly believes in the sanctity of the matrimonial bed, a principle instilled by her mother, El. Though she has known love, it was tragically fleeting, ending all too soon. She longs to pray for him. Oh, how she yearns to. But she finds herself drained of all strength. Last night stretched endlessly, the darkest hours of her existence, as her beloved husband violated her trust, shattering her loyalty and extinguishing the last embers of love within her. How can someone who professed love be capable of such cruelty? She wonders. She struggled to find any rest, her eyes weighed down by tears and vigilance. The fear lingered that he might return to harm her in her sleep. She remained alert. She remains deeply traumatized by last night's ordeal. Her body throbs with pain, as if every bone were crushed during the Duke's assault. Lost in thought about the harrowing event, she startles when her door creaks open, her mind racing with fear. Could he be returning to resume his assault? Liora clenched every fiber of her bedding tightly, consumed by fear. With a silent prayer in her heart, she pleaded, "God, forgive and protect me." In that vulnerable moment, Agatha, her lady-in-waiting, entered. Though Duchess Liora feigned relief, she knew it was fleeting. Her suffering would persist as long as she remained married to Duke Elendor. Agatha greeted Liora with customary courtesies, but upon Leora's attempt to respond, she noticed her own voice cracked from screaming and wailing. Aware of the incident that had echoed through the walls of Lysendell Castle, Agatha informed the Duchess that the Duke had long departed for his scheduled event of the day. Even in the Duke's absence, the atmosphere lingered heavy with the aftermath of the storm that had swept through the grand halls of Lysendell. The Duchess was keenly aware that most, if not all, of the servants had overheard the events that unfolded behind closed doors. Agatha's demeanor, with her teary eyes and the unmistakable expression of pain and helplessness etched on her face, revealed her deep understanding of the horrors Liora had endured. "My lady," Agatha began softly, "I am here." Liora lifted her head gently, her cracked voice quivering as she attempted to rise from the bed. "I can't get up. I can't get up." Agatha hurried to the Duchess, offering support by holding her hand. With a reassuring tone, she said, "Just slowly, gently," guiding Leora's legs and feet until they were steady on the floor. Despite the Duchess's groans of agony from her aching body, Agatha graciously and gently supported her, ensuring she was balanced and comfortably seated. "Your Grace," Agatha began, sensing Leora's embarrassment as she noticed not only her bruised face and body, but the moist, blood-stained sheets hinting at what had transpired between them. Gently, Agatha began to gather Leora's hair, preparing her for a bath, and spoke softly, "I sent everyone away before it escalated." As she carefully removed the sleeve from Leora's right hand and prepared to do the same with the left, she reassured, "I am here. Tell me where I can assist you." "I'm certain they pieced it together, didn't they?" Liora chuckled weakly, a fractured sound that pierced like shards of glass. Agatha struggled to find a response, her eyes filling with fresh tears. She quickly regained her composure and focused on her tasks. "Let me clean you up, my lady." With trembling hands, Agatha peeled away the layers of opulence that clung to Liora, the remnants of silk and velvet barely clinging to her form. In Leora's eyes, Agatha saw reflected the deep-seated pain that had permeated her being. Supporting Liora as she stood, Agatha ensured her stability before they made their way to the bathroom. Liora took cautious steps, her private area tender and sore. With Agatha's supportive hand on her back, they slowly entered the bathroom, where Liora soaked in a steaming hot bath, cleansing away the anguish. Before Agatha could assist her with dressing once more, Liora issued a peculiar instruction. "I wish to stay here. I am unwell and do not wish to be disturbed." Agatha nodded understandingly, replying, "Yes, my lady." A week had passed since the incident. She stayed inside until the bruises on her face and neck had healed, and she had mustered just enough courage to face the outside world again. Above all, she deeply missed Reverend Percy. Each day, Liora would peer out the window, hoping to catch a glimpse of him wandering the palace gardens. Yet, there was no sign of him anywhere. Agatha entered, as was her daily routine, to attend to Liora. Today, Liora seemed more inquisitive than usual, inquiring, "What are the Duke's plans for today? How long will he be gone?" Without missing a beat, Agatha reported, "I've heard he's off to a provincial events. From there, he plans to spend 2 days with the Queen Mother at the palace and return by noon." Internally, Liora felt a sense of relief, thinking that at least she would enjoy 2 peaceful nights without her tempestuous husband. "I have a favor to ask of you," Liora then said. Agatha, ever ready to serve, replied, "At your service, my lady." Approaching Agatha, Liora requested, "I need your clothes." This unexpected ask took Agatha aback, leaving her puzzled about why the Duchess would need the garments of a handmaid. Sensing Agatha's bewilderment, Liora quickly added, "And please, don't question it. Just follow my instructions." Agatha gave a courteous nod. "Ensure you're not seen. Bring them tonight," Liora further instructed. Agatha agreed, her mind swirling with questions about Liora's mysterious request. Agatha complied quietly with the request, understanding it was the least she could offer in support. Dressed in the plain attire of a handmaid, much like those who served beyond the castle's grandeur, Liora couldn't help but chuckle at her reflection. Despite her wealth, power, and luxurious surroundings, none of it could shield her from her current predicament. Her protection now depended on the simplicity of a garment rough against her skin. The irony of her situation was not lost on her. It was both profound and somewhat humorous. In this guise, she found herself once more seeking refuge in the shadows, venturing out into the secrecy of the night in search of a place of safety, perhaps even a companion. The destination was still the same, the church. While the journey to the church felt both eternal and fleeting, it was easier to navigate the path this time around as it was familiar. She longs for Reverend Percy, his supportive words that have been her lifeline, his genuine smile and laughter, and the depth of understanding he offered her. She wishes she could share the events of her day with him, but their paths haven't crossed recently. More than anything, she's reluctant to dredge up that particular ordeal again, preferring to lock it away in her heart. Yet, she wonders if that's truly possible. Deep down, she knows stepping away from the castle will bring her more happiness than she's known in a while. Liora slipped out the back door, weaving her way through the castle's shadowy alleys and concealed passageways to avoid the guards' eyes. She remained determined, buoyed by the prospect of confiding in a trusted friend at her journey's end, which lightened the burden of her stealthy escape. Upon reaching the church, she discovered the chapel empty. A predictable scenario given the hour was beyond midnight. Yet, she was undeterred, knowing precisely where to find Reverend Percy, in his private quarters. This route had grown increasingly familiar to her, as her visits to see the Reverend there had become a frequent part of her routine. The difference was that all those times were during the day, acceptable, explainable. This time, however, was not. Still, she continued on. She stealthily made her way to the priestly quarters, avoiding recognition by traversing a secluded alley leading to Reverend Percy's private chamber. Up and concluding his late-night bath, Reverend Percy, draped in his robe, entered his chamber only to find himself face to face with an unexpected visitor. "Oh God, my lady, how did you— Wait, what are you—" he stammered, his surprise rendering his words a jumble. Interrupting his bewildered inquiries, Liora calmly explained, "The door was open. I led myself in." A moment later, realizing the implications of her unannounced presence, she added with a hint of regret, "I didn't mean to intrude." Noticing the shift in her demeanor, Percy, with a reassuring gesture, responded, "No, You're not. It's just that I didn't anticipate your visit, especially not at this hour." His words, accompanied by a comforting wave, sought to ease the tension of their unexpected encounter. Liora, sensing the awkwardness of her intrusion, suggested a retreat. "Perhaps I shall return another day. I have infringed on your private moment," she said, turning to leave. However, Reverend Percy quickly reached out, gently grasping her hand. "Whatever brought you here must be troubling. Tell me, what is it?" he urged, a sincere concern lining his voice. It was then, as she faced him again, that he noticed a faint, bluish mark marring the right side of her face. The sight of the bruise halted his words, replacing them with a silent question that lingered heavily in the air between them. Reverend Percy asked her if she could give him a moment to change and step outside the room. While she waited in a different room, she glimpsed through the slight gap between the door and its frame, catching a view of Reverend Percy's imposing silhouette, his physique strikingly formidable. Swiftly, Reverend Percy donned his clerical garments. Upon dressing, he joined her in the adjacent room, inquiring if they could proceed into the sanctuary. As they journeyed toward the sanctuary, she was about to encounter another unexpected revelation. It was in this moment that she experienced a sensation, long absent from her life, a feeling she deeply missed and had earnestly sought to rekindle, both within herself and in her relationship with the Duke, yet it had remained tantalizingly elusive. This sensation, known by many names, the bloom, the desire, the spark, suddenly became palpable. At that instant, she felt an inner flame reawaken. Her heart rate accelerated and her breathing intensified. Although the Reverend was now fully clothed, the memory of his semi-exposed physique stubbornly remained in her thoughts, revealing the secrets hidden beneath his loose-fitting garments. As they entered the sanctuary, he took her hand with gentlemanly grace, guiding her to a pew where they could sit, choosing to sit across from her. His acute awareness of her lingering gaze upon his chest led him to clear his throat, hoping to divert her attention. However, this gesture only shifted the intensity of her gaze, from his chest to his eyes. Locked in each other's gaze, she sensed he understood her thoughts when he averted his eyes first, beginning to speak. "My lady," interrupting him, the Duchess declared, "I missed you." Caught off guard and momentarily at a loss for words, Reverend Percy recalled their last conversation about her intentions to revive the love with the Duke. Seeking an update, he gently inquired, "Please, my lady, tell me." Liora preferred to leave the past behind, yet found herself admitting, "I've tried everything to regain my husband's love," she exclaimed, her voice breaking as she slid the sleeve of her robe down to reveal fresh bruises marring her tender skin. "I'm terrified. Freedom seems impossible." Her sobs filled the room, drawing Reverend Percy to wrap his arms around her, offering his chest as a consolation for her tears. The atmosphere grew heavy, charged with a silent despair. Reverend Percy's face contorted with horror and disbelief, his voice firm. "You mustn't return to him." Gently lifting her face to meet his, he brushed away her tears, the fear evident in his eyes. "He might end your life. While I can't make this decision for you, continuing to live with him is not an option." Despite his pleas, Liora retreated, a look of staunch refusal in her eyes. "Lysandel is not just a place, it's my entire existence. How can I abandon my people and flee?" She was overcome with sorrow, hiding her despair behind her hands. Seeing her distress, Reverend Percy approached softly, his hand resting reassuringly on her shoulder. "What do you desire? I am here for you, ready to support you through this ordeal. Just let me know your wishes." Their conversation was abruptly interrupted by the sound of a door locking. Liora glanced towards the sound, contemplating her return to the castle. Reverend Percy offered a solution. "I'll escort you via the tunnel to ensure your safe return." Their eyes met, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken bond between them. Holding her hand, Reverend Percy implored, "Promise me you'll survive until morning. I'll alert the bishop and gather support from other priests." With a nod of assurance, Liora showed her appreciation with a soft kiss on Reverend Percy's cheek. Percy, however, was not inclined to respond in kind. First, as a priest, he was dedicated exclusively to God. Second, he could not engage in any form of romantic involvement, especially with a married woman of high status, like a duchess, as it would violate the sacred vows of his priesthood. To avoid making Liora feel rejected, he gently took her hand to help her up, and together, they continued their way towards the tunnel. Reverend Percy, holding the gate open for her to slip through. They traversed the cemetery and quiet fields in silence. Liora worried for Reverend Percy's return journey alone, but remained focused on the task at hand. As they neared the castle's back gate, Liora embraced Reverend Percy tightly, then stealthily made her way inside, avoiding detection. Inside her chambers, Duchess Liora hastily removed the decoy set up by Agatha, only to be startled by loud footsteps. The Duke's sudden appearance and aggressive behavior confirmed her worst fears. Before she could flee, the Duke seized her, his tirade of curses echoing through the castle. Dragged to a room, Liora was horrified to find Agatha bound and beaten. Realizing the gravity of the situation, she knew she must act swiftly to save both herself and Agatha. Facing the assembled guards at the Duke's command, Liora began to disrobe, a desperate ploy for a moment's distraction. The Duke's slap was met with her biting retaliation, and she fled amidst the chaos. The Duke, enraged, ordered his men to capture her alive, then hurried towards the church in pursuit. Exhausted and desperate, Liora aimed for the king's palace, hoping to expose the Duke's cruelty. Just as she faltered, only to be caught.